pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. We have one speaker today, Mr. Valerio. There you are. Bill.
He didn't know who you were talking about.
Oh, yeah, there's another Valerio. I'm sorry.
I know most, yeah.
That wasn't good about 10 years ago, right?
10
If you
years
knew
ago.
us.
I retired from police 17, almost 18 years ago. I'm an old man.
Yeah.
And in the old.
I know, you're not as old as I am, but,
I know, you're my English teacher.
yeah. So,
Okay, I know I got about 2 minutes, so I'm gonna just do the best I can here. My name is Bill Valerio.
All right, next, number 4, public hearing regarding tax abatement for property within the city of Albany for the purpose of funding costs for construction of a single-family home. Who is addressing that? It's on the agenda. Or there's no discussion or no presentation involving that? All right. Celebrating district success, we do have a Dominican Republic student trip to hear about. Thank you very much, Mary.
And then, perfect. All right, so I am Mary Scoppers. I am one of the Spanish teachers at the high school. This past June, from the 3rd to the 10th, we took 12 students to the Dominican Republic, 8 days. It was an amazing time. I've got just a couple snippets and information about what we did. So about the DR, we chose this because it has one of the richer histories of the islands that speak Spanish. You know, the Dominican Republic is the first island that the European settlers came to. It's got the first European settlement, was their capital city. So it has a lot of influence on that current culture as well. So we were able to talk about the history and how it has affected the people today. The travel team, so we had myself, the other Spanish teacher was the other chaperone, Wilson Boada, and then EF Tours, that's the company that we took, provided a tour guide and a driver for us for every day, and that was Daniel and Gabriel in those pictures there. So these are all the things that were included in the price of the trip. So all of the local experiences, all of the hotels, all of the meals, bus transport, if somebody got sick, cab transport back to the hotel, airport, the tour guide and driver, plus EF support was constantly there for us. They have a global protection plan, so if anything would have happened, they cover some of that cost for those kids. So we started, this is kind of hard to see, we started on the south side of the island and worked to the north. So we were able to start in some of those metropolitan cities, work our way into the mountains, those kind of, if you think like jungle, forest situation, up to sandy beaches on the north side. So from south to north, started in Santo Domingo. So the first day, we met at Albert Lee High School parking lot at 2 a.m. It was a very, very early day, yes. For a 6:15 flight to Miami, a 1:35 flight to Santo Domingo. We landed a little bit late. I know there was some storms and delays. We landed, checked in, walked to the hotel, but it was an area that the bus couldn't go into because it's the first city in the Americas, so it's all cobblestone, had to do a lot of walking. Nobody was ready for the 100-degree weather, let's say that. So for our first full day there, we started by going on a walking tour of Colonial City. Again, that's the first European settlement in the Americas. And then we traveled to Tres Ojos Caves, Three Eyes Caves. This is a nature reserve. It's got these beautiful open-air cave systems. 2 of them are freshwater, which is really interesting to be able to see, and one of them has direct access to the ocean. Our accommodations, that first night we stayed in the Hodelpa Novas Plaza, that was in the downtown, and then the next day, after our first day, we checked out and went on to the next city, and that was to go to Rancho Bayagate, which was located up in the mountains. We stayed there for 2 nights. It was a beautiful campus with lots of a pool, a rec area for the kids. They had basketball courts. There was wild donkeys. It was a great time. So for that first day there, we started in the Instituto del Ambiente, and that is the Environmental Institute. This is an institute in the Dominican that invites people from all over the world to learn about their reforestation efforts because their country was so affected by deforestation to begin with. Their second campus crossed 5 swinging bridges, which was a lot of fun. Only 8 people at a time could walk across, to a beautiful waterfall, the Salto de Jimena, and then we headed for the Jaraventura, which was our whitewater rafting adventure. That was, we ended up having to get out of the rafts and walk for quite a bit because we were there in the rainy season, so some of the larger boulders had been shifted, and it wasn't safe for us to go down, so we had to get out at one point and walk. The next day, when we left that mountainous area, we started by going to a small town, Higuerito, where we learned how they are making the bricks. This is due to the reforestation efforts. They're trying not to use as much wood, so they're finding new ways to do this. So they had everything laid out in about a table this size, 3 different piles, and just had the kids start mixing it all together. So a lot of hands-on stuff. We also spun the pottery wheel there and made some dolls that they used to sell at their shops. Then we went to the Centro Leon Museum. It was an amazing museum where we started by talking about the Taino people. Those were the people that were originally indigenous to the island, working our way up to our current day. That was really interesting for the kids, especially because none of those Taino people exist anymore. So it was interesting for them to learn that. And then we went on a street art walking tour in the city of Santiago. This was basically kind of like a graffiti walking tour. The city is really focused on recycling and making sure that people are taking care of the ocean. So a lot of that had to do with it. And in the middle, we ended up at a community center where our kids played a game of pickup basketball against a girls' team of Dominican players, which was a lot of fun for those kids to play. I know it was, I think we won in the end, I think. So then that night when we were in Santiago, we stayed at the Jodelpa Centro Plaza. That was in the downtown of Santiago. Like I said, that's where we did our street walking tour. There was a mini carnival presentation, and I have a video of that to show you. And then the very, how do I describe this? It's the 4th hotel, but it wasn't the last one. We ended up going back to Jodelpa Centro Plaza right before we left the country. So our 4th place was Pier Giorgio Palace, and it was built into a cliffside. It used to be one of the more expensive hotels in the Dominican, and it's kind of gone down since COVID. But it was beautiful, built in the cliffside. Everybody had balconies. It was gorgeous. Ooh. So that is an example of our carnival that we got to celebrate. So the kids were able to put on costumes and learn some of the dances that they do traditionally at carnival, and then participate in a short display. So Carnival is kind of like their version of Mardi Gras. And so these are past costumes that have been used and masks that have been used in the past. This was one of the last things that we did on this day. It was a very busy day. So we started off by taking the Teleferico cable car up the side of a mountain. You can kind of see that in the picture. It was very hard to take a picture of exactly how high up you end up. Then we ended up at a jiu-jitsu class, which was really interesting, a local community center that's working with kids in the area, not to learn how to fight, but to learn how to defend yourself and how to get out of a fight, that kind of thing. And then the mini carnival, which was amazing. And then we had a separate dance class where we learned both bachata and merengue. And those are some pictures. I know we didn't take many at the jiu-jitsu or the dancing because everybody was participating, which was really cool. On our 6th day, while we were at the Pier Giorgio, we ended up at a beautiful beach, Encuentro Beach it was called, to hang out for a couple of hours. There was an optional excursion that students could buy into to go surfing. They were surfing for probably 2-3 hours. And then we spent the afternoon zip-lining through the forests up in that northern coastal region, which was really fun for the kids. I'm gonna talk over this, it's just underwater. The very last day, we ended up at this tiny, tiny sandbar. You can see the picture, that's all that fit on it were those 2-3 cabanas and us. And, I don't know if the sound will go off. So we got into this teeny tiny little boat, everybody packed on, and went out into the middle of the ocean. You couldn't see anything around. All we had was the sandbar, and they had snorkels optional for kids. And Wilson brought an underwater camera, which was really nice to have. After this, we went to another small sandbar. They called it their pool. It wasn't a pool, it was still in the ocean. We could just only walk at this point. And then they brought us on the boats through the red mangroves, which is essential for their ecosystem there. And then finally, we checked back into the hotel in Santiago, and on June 10th, we left. We were on the plane by 1. I want to say it was a really delayed flight. We had a lot of storms. So here's a couple more just small pictures from the things that we did, because of course I couldn't encapsulate everything into this. And then I did have a student send me a review. I didn't get any from any other students in time. She had an amazing time to the point where I spoke to her today, and she has now changed her class schedule to include Spanish 3. And I know that I've got at least 4 kids that went on the trip that are still in Spanish 3. So we're hoping that this kind of builds some retention within our program. We're hoping to travel with kids more often because these are the experiences that they're having. Any questions?
Questions, board, comments?
What grades did you take of students?
So we did not allow any students that had only taken Spanish 1 to go. So we only took what would have been sophomores through seniors. I think we didn't have any 18-year-olds because there was a certain, through sign up, through the thing, they had to, certain thing for 18. I want to say we had 12 kids and then myself and Wilson. Yep.
Others, questions, comments?
Chair, I'd just like to make a comment. I just want to say thank you. And 2 words that pop out are the experience and inspired. So those 2 are aligned to our mission. So I appreciate you taking the students for this experiential learning. And it's wonderful to hear the feedback, and thank you for sharing. It looked amazing. And I think that even in this hot weather, many of us were looking to project ourselves there in that nice underwater excursion. Thank you.
Absolutely. Thank you so much.
Yes, and I can add to that, that it was my happiness to take a group of students to another country long ago, and I still correspond with those students, and we established friends, and I'm Facebook friends with some of them. So it's a really good educational,
Yeah, it was nice to get to know the students in a way that I don't get to in the classroom.
yeah,
Yeah.
very nice.
Thank you so much.
Yep. All right. Moving on to the agenda. On the agenda, do I hear a motion to approve today's agenda? So moved. Moved by Bruce.
I'll second.
Seconded by Kim. Any discussion? Okay, all those in favor of the motion signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed? Motion carries. Now, consent items. We have a number of items that we have all had an opportunity to examine. So unless I hear a desire to separate one of them,
I'll move to approve consent.
it's moved and seconded to approve the consent items. Any discussion, questions? Hearing none. All those in favor of approving the consent items, say aye. Aye. Opposed? Motion carries. All right. That brings us to reports. Superintendent Wagner.
Thank you, Chair, directors, teacher representative, as well as community and students. Welcome, and we're excited to say that, as we think about that report and align it to our mission that ensure individual academic, social, emotional growth that leads to engaged citizens and lifelong learners, that always learning, that component is definitely reinforced of what our students were able to experience. And with that, it's with excitement that we had a huge welcome back last week for our students, staff, as well as the community. We really centered the day on supporting, not only our students, but our staff and our community, and really building that and deepening our relationship with the community. So I want to thank you for all the staff that, for their day, for their engagement in the afternoon in our first ever festival. Welcome Back Festival. It was, even though the weather was kind of different than it is now, it was still highly attended, and you saw a lot of smiles and a lot of hugs and a lot of excitement. So I know that the dunk tank was definitely an experience that was chilling, but it was exciting. So fun night, and we centered the day and as well as the evening with Joe Beckman and his inspiration and just the foundation of that human connection. And I think that's going to be really a huge focus as we continue to build a relationship. So thank you for a wonderful evening. So with that, tomorrow is the first day for welcoming back our students. And, you know, our Y will be walking through our doors early in the morning. A couple things to say that, you know, we're overly excited for tomorrow, but we also need to recognize there will be some extreme heat and know that that's Minnesota. There's, you know, last week it was, like I said, it was chilling and cold, and tomorrow will be warm. But the good news, our buildings they look wonderful. Our custodians have done an amazing job, and they're air conditioned. So our students will be learning in a nice environment. It will be nice and relaxing, and I know the teachers are excited to have the students back as well. So a couple other things to note that with the warmer weather, students will be permitted to carry water bottles. There's water filtration in the building, so should be a good day, and I know that the teachers are prepared, as well as the building leaders have talked with the staff. Also for parents, just a reminder, review the busing information. The buses will come tomorrow, but there will be some excitement, so the buses may be a little bit delayed. I know that there's generally some extra pictures and hugs and some tears and cheers at our bus stop, so just know that will be happening tomorrow morning. I'm excited for the second year now to begin my day with a bus ride with a student, so that'll be a good way to start my day as we continue supporting our students. Just another update, universal free meals. That will begin this year, and we're excited to say the students will have a free breakfast and lunch provided at no charge. Please continue to fill out the free and eligible application. Those are important as we think of student and school funding. Also, at the high school, this is just the general meals. This does not include the a la carte items. So that's just a reminder, and that'll be on our website. And our school nutritionist will be available to support as well. But this is, Governor Walz signed this into legislation, and we're excited for our students to have the universal access to breakfast and meals. And that concludes my report. Again, excited for students to come back tomorrow.
Thank you, Superintendent Wagner. I was thinking about you. I missed the event, the Welcome Back event, but I have my shirt on, and I read Joe Beckman's book on the beach. And that's not the name of his book, but I was on the beach when I read the book, and I wish I had been able to be here to hear him in person. Sounds like an exciting event. All right, next, school board members. Let's begin with Gary.
Oh, thanks, Chairman Score. Attended a business education committee. I'd like to express my appreciation to the Jeff Halverson and the welding faculty for having those available for college credit. I think for advanced welding, just a great opportunity, and I think manufacturing education has seen some trends up across our two-year colleges. I attended the festival opening session. I did not realize Jeff Halverson had such great dance moves. I just did not know that he had that skill set, but that was a fun day. And also Jeff and Bert gave me a tour of the computer lab, just very impressive place, so that was fun. On another side note, I'm a member of the Lions Club, and bingo at the fair is our big fundraiser, and we have band students that help us out. They get 10% of the money from our proceeds, and the kids did a fantastic job, and the director was there checking and making sure they were trained and showing up, and we really had a good experience. It was fun to be able to write that check out now from our proceeds of bingo.
Bingo looked like the hottest
It was wild, yeah, it was a lot of fun. So 10%, we'll give a check to the band program here in the next couple weeks, so.
Great. Angie?
I have no committee meetings to report this time.
Kim?
Thank you. I attended the Business Ed Committee as well. I think Gary kind of alluded to the direction that that committee's going on, what we're supporting, but you should also be seeing some really relevant articles from our committee in the paper and some promotion of really growing our own, if you will. So that's exciting direction for the Business Ed Committee. I also am on the Education Foundation, and we continue to grapple with what does our future look like at the Education Foundation, making sure we continue to stay relevant for supporting what Neil would say is the super booster of the district. But really just does it look different? And so that's a great opportunity if anybody, there'll be fundraisers coming up and events coming up, so make sure you participate. I was at the kickoff festival in the morning. It was really fun to see the excitement of faculty and staff coming in and getting their coffee. And it doesn't hurt to have a tiger there. And administration was there. It was really awesome. I just wanted to also promote, there's a kite festival this Saturday. It is a fundraiser for the all-inclusive playground that's coming, and there's been a $50,000 match donor. So it's a great fundraiser if you're available from 11 to 4 anytime during that time out at Edgewater Bay. And it's a great opportunity for our students. So
Thank you. Dave?
On a local level, just the staff welcome back was a great time again. I was indoors, probably as good as indoors this year, but it's fun to see everybody there willing to get back. And probably is a good reminder that I think everybody is pretty much ready to get back to school as we start now. From the state level, I did have an MSBA quarterly meeting on the 6th of August up in the cities. We're doing some rearranging. We're trying to make it a little bit more, I'm gonna say user-friendly, where people feel a little bit more welcome to go in and use some of the different initiatives that are put on there. There's a lot of things, a lot of training that goes on. And again, but they want to make it relevant to more people. So that's something we've been working on now for about half a year. And then I just wanted to highlight one thing we do have through the end of the month, which is getting fairly close. We have what they call a delegate assembly. And at the delegate assembly, we have every school district in the state of Minnesota has an opportunity to file 1, 2, 3, 4, any initiatives that they think should be considered by the state legislature. And what we do then is we discuss those. Those are all written up by MSBA to be on the legalese side. And then we get together, and if it's a self-appointing mechanism for it. So if you get some interest, definitely look into it. Or check with me, I can get you the information. But what we do is we have, one time we'll have a virtual meeting where we'll go through, I've been through it 2 years. This last year we had 18 different proposals. And I believe at the delegate assembly then, which will be December 1st and 2nd, we went through all of those and we voted on them. And I believe 16 of the 18 were sent to the state legislature then, and I think a couple of them were acted upon. They all were acted upon. A couple were pushed forward again with the legislature this last year. So important things. A lot of times it's important to an individual school district, but it also might be something that becomes important to us at a time in the future. So I think it's a very worthwhile experience. Again, basically 2 meetings. The one on December 1st and 2nd is a Friday night where they'll have a speaker come in. They'll overview all of the different things that we'll be looking at and voting on Saturday. Very interesting. Then on Saturday, we'll have a meeting, we'll have a lunch, and we'll vote on yay or nay. Everybody has an opportunity to speak. I spoke on a couple of them last year. A friend of mine from Austin spoke on a number of them that they had up there. So anyway, I highly encourage. Last year we were short one delegate from my area. Now I wasn't the director at that point, so I decided I'm hoping to get 3. And we're even looking at realigning that too. We've got some of the metro schools would like to have a little bit more representation. And the way it's set up right now is for every 12,500 students. And in my area, I've got 61 schools. And so we add up all the students amongst them and divide them out by 12,500, and we come up with 3 delegates. Again, everyone has a minimum of 1, and I think there's a max of 5. So last year we only had 2 delegates there to vote. I would like to hopefully, and it's nice, it was an opportunity from our board to take another step towards some state, different committees. So that's it. Thank you. Sorry for the lengthiness. I'm getting ready for my son's wedding, so I've been told to keep it short. And I remember from a good friend of mine, I've got the mic. Go ahead, Neil. Sorry, go ahead, Dave.
Thank you. Hey, Davey.
I don't have any committee meetings to report on right now. I did, however, I was able to attend the festival too. I provided music and some play-by-play for the dunk tank, which was fun. It was really fun to see how many students were there and the interaction between the students and the staff, and being excited to see the teachers again and having the presence there for the families to see. So it was a lot of fun, and it was a huge success. So thank you for letting me be part of that.
Thank you. Bruce.
Yeah, I attended the Freeborn County Collaborative meeting. We updated some bylaws, we passed that, and then we're looking at hiring a collaborative coordinator. So we talked a little bit like what that position would involve. So we're looking forward to getting somebody hired to help us out writing grants and things like that. I also attended the Athletic Hall of Fame, which is always a fun night, and everybody's got a smile on their face. It's just a great time. Then I talked around a little bit about the opening session. I've been involved with 20 or so in some capacity with the district, and it was most moving for me. I'm just waiting for next year to see how you can top that. I don't think you can, so it was a lot of fun.
All right, thank you, Bruce. I've been involved in that event since 1968, so probably have a few more than 20. It was one of the few that I missed last week, and as I said, I regretted not being able to be there. The only thing I have to report is consistent with Kim. We're both members of the Education Foundation. Kim is in charge of strategic planning, or that committee. I'm the chair, so I get to be involved in just about everything. And the event that's coming up now after the Hall of Fame banquet reception, which was on the 27th, 28th of July. Our next event is October 12th, and it is the Pathways to Success, which is totally consistent with the mission of our district. And that event will be October 12th. As I said, it involves 2 programs, distinguished alumni. There are 4. That's traditionally 4 each year, and distinguished educators, and there are 4 of those. So, as was the case with the Hall of Fame banquet, where there were 8 honorees, we also will have 8. And you can, for information on that, you can look at the Education Foundation's website. Google it, you'll find it, Education Foundation of Albert Lea. All of the arrangements that you need are available there. All right, next, our teacher representative.
Is it on?
It's hard to
Okay.
tell.
All right, so the first thing that we wanted to share was just a thank you to the district and the board for all of the beginning of the year things. The coffee, the treats, the t-shirts, Joe Beckman, and the festival. It was a really positive way to kick off our school year. The high school wanted to share about 8th grade orientation today with their Link crew. So they had all of the 8th graders there with their junior and senior kind of mentors, their Link crew people, showing them around, giving them a tour. They go through their schedule. They have activities for them. My daughter is an 8th grader, and I asked her what was the best and the worst of the day, and she said, it was all good. So it was a success, which was good to hear. And then the last thing I have is Lakeview staff is gearing up for a new drop-off and pickup routine. So we are ready to help our students and our families just be a little bit more safe as they bring kids to school and pick them up, and we are geared up to make that a positive and safe experience for all tomorrow. And I think you'll be there with us too, correct? All right. And that's all I have.
Is that parent drop-off and pickup?
Yeah,
Bus drop-off?
both. It's all changing. Buckle up, Bruce.
Yeah,
It's going to be fun.
All right, thank you. Next item, under curriculum and instruction, we have some elementary and secondary handbook updates. First.
Good evening. I'm Nikki Sievertson, the principal at Sibley Elementary. I think everyone knows who I am. I'm just sharing with you our student elementary guide. All 4 of our elementary buildings have looked through it. We all share the same elementary guide with our families. Changes from in the past, we have just a few. One of them was the Lakeview pickup drop-off is a change. We also added in there for our cell phones, smartwatches, and electronic devices. We're being more proactive and being more detailed of what would happen if a student is on their device during the day in the elementaries. We have that students may bring those to school, but they are asked to have them turned off and placed either in their lockers, backpacks, or given to the classroom teacher for the entire school day. Smartwatches can be worn as a watch, but if it turns into like a communicative device, then we follow with the follow-through of having the device taken away, and students can pick it up. So the first offense, students will pick up the device in the office at the end of the school day, and parents will be contacted. If the students have their devices or use their devices on a second or third offense, then we'll meet with the parent and talk about what we can do to help their child following with having the device. Because if it's an emergency or if they need to get a hold of a parent, they need to follow the protocol of talking to their teacher, coming to the office. And the parent would need to pick up their device at the end of the day, and then on the 4th offense, we'll have another conversation of what that would look like moving forward. Possibly, I know parents want their child to have phones, so at the end of the day, they can communicate with them, so we would just hold the phone in the office, lock it up, and then the student can have it at the end of the day. So that is a change. It's not really a change, it's just being more specific as devices have become more and more prominent. Another change that we just added in here to make it more explicit is the free breakfast and lunch for all students. So that's in here for parents as well. At the elementary level, I was going to say unfortunately, but we've had 3 of our 4 school counselors have left our district for reasons of family, moving closer to family, education, other reasons. And so we've been creative with that position, and we have provided now elementary deans, and we are in the process of interviewing for those deans and looking for people to be the right people to be in those spots. So we, in our handbook, or our guide, have taken out school counselors. Right now, we've just left it with school social workers until we have more of a plan moving forward. At this point, we have hired 1 elementary dean for the 4 buildings and in the process of interviewing more. Those are the changes in our elementary guide. We also made a change to, which I would like to speak to more, that's part of it, our positive behavior plan for all 4 elementary schools. So we worked on that together to have a cohesive form for all elementaries to be the same. So students, parents, it won't matter what school you're at, we all have the same language and vocabulary that we're using with our students and being more proactive with our behavior plan. Of course, it's something new that we're doing in a way, so we will make adjustments to it along the way just so that we can be more proactive and use more restorative approaches to meet student needs. We kept that in mind. The reason why we did do the changes, there was legislative updates this summer that came out And if you want me to share some of those legislative updates, I can. If you're aware of them, I don't need to get into details, but I'll take the lead from all of you, what you would like me to do.
Okay, yeah, and we've all had an opportunity to examine these. Any questions, comments? On phones, I'm on. On phones, I'm assuming, I can just hear parents complaining that their child should have their phone with them constantly, so if I have to contact them in the case of an emergency, they can still contact the school, and the school will contact. I mean,
Correct.
that's the way it was for
Yes.
years.
Yes, and that's what we encourage them to do, and
Yeah.
also let them know that we want the best for their child and the safety, but we also want them learning in the class, and so we will get the message to their
Sure,
child
and
for
it
them.
isn't like the student is isolated and discommunicated from everybody in the world. I mean, they're still available. And then the other thing that I know, councils, I know that was a fairly welcomed adjustment that was made, I don't know, 8, 6, 7 years ago or whatever. And I'm a little concerned that the persons that are going to replace the counselors, will they provide, each school is going to have the same or perhaps better facilities in place to accommodate mental issues that
Being our
seems
top
to be-
priority.
Yeah. okay.
Yes, what has happened is we are not getting people graduating with school counseling licensure, and so we had to be creative with that. Our elementary deans will be involved in our MTSS process, a big part of that, and working with social emotional learning, or social emotional with the students. That's a
Right.
huge piece.
Yes, it is a huge piece, so I'm glad to hear that that's still being addressed.
Yes.
Okay, any other comments, questions? Thank you.
just- Just one quick question, if I can. It might be more for Ron. Do you know when the handbooks will be out for the parents online?
Yes, so they are online right now.
Right now, okay.
And at our interview, our caregiver teacher interviews last Thursday, Friday, they were addressed in the interview time, and then also parents were notified that they could either get one, a hard copy of one we'd give them, or they can go on each school's website and find it, but there's a link on there. Thank you.
Thank you. All right. Southwest. Taylor.
All right, thank you for having me aboard. The first thing first is just to make it a little bit easier, we kind of alphabetized the student handbook this year, just so it's a little bit easier to look through as well. And then I'm just going to go through our additions and deletions, and if you guys have any questions, please let me know as well. So on the allergies and deliveries, we did add that students are not allowed to have food, candy, or gum in the classroom unless given permission by the classroom teacher as well. And our cell phones and other electronic devices, I put in a part from the MSBA student handbook example, and that's that first paragraph there that just goes through that the school does have permission to look through a student's phone if the student is in violation of breaking school policy or law. And then with the closed campus as well, just to add to that, where it says students are not to leave the building at any time unless parent or guardian has called to excuse their student. Students are given a paper pass, and so it is their responsibility then to show that classroom teacher that they are leaving before they leave for the day. For our emergency drills, so this is something new district-wide. This year we have adopted the standard response protocol from the I Love You Guys Foundation, but this is the same language that will be used across all of the schools in the district, as well as our first responders as well. So the language will be the same whether it is a hold, secure, lockdown, evacuate, shelter. It encompasses all of our emergency drills. The grading system, we are still operating under the 90-10 grading policy, so 90% of a student's grade comes from assessment, 10% comes from homework. We did clean up the late work part of that, so at minimum, students have 1 week from the assessment to turn in any late work that goes with that assessment, and that is the same for retakes as well. A teacher can always extend that, but that's the minimum as far as every class goes at Southwest. Lockers. So we are asking that students leave their water bottles in their lockers during the school day. My teachers have said that it just becomes too much of a distraction, spraying. Not all the liquid in the bottles are water, so then it creates a mess for our custodians as well. But students will still be able to leave during class to get a drink of water. They will still be able to get drinks of water between classes as well. And like I was telling our parents at our open house as well, that I promise that no one will die from dehydration from not having a water bottle in the classroom. We did remove the, students are able to carry small purses, something an iPad can fit into. We don't have iPads or really a need for a student to carry a purse or a small bag along with them from class to class. While our instruction leadership team went over the grading policy last year, we also decided that we should put in a piece on plagiarism as well, so that is now in the handbook. That just goes over that, and then what happens the first offense, and then after the first offense as well. And then also with legislation, student ID cards will need to have suicide prevention hotline information on there as well. So we did include a segment on that in our student handbook for this year as well. So those are the updates for Southwest.
I have a question as far as distribution. How do you handle it as far as distribution to parents and students?
As far as like
handbook.
the handbook, so it's all online. At our open house as well, there's an opportunity for students and parents to both grab the student handbook as well. We didn't include it with all of the parent information, but it was an option for them to grab if they did want that.
Tyler, what's cell phone policy, same as last year? Any addition to that, same as the high school? How's yours work?
Yeah, so our cell phone policy hasn't changed. During the school day, students are not able to be on cell phones or any other electronic devices. And then there is a series of first violation down to fourth violation as well. So yes, during the school day, no cell phones or electronic devices.
Other questions, comments? Thank you, Tyler.
Thank you.
High school.
Well, our big addition was the cell phone, so I'm going to show you what every kid's going to look at tomorrow at about 9:15 or so in the morning, if you want to start that wonderful video.
Welcome back, Albert Lee High School, for the 23-24 school year. It's Mr. Dibble, your principal, and I'd like to start by saying welcome back. Over the summer, we came up with what we can do to always expect the best of our students and staff, and it came down to one thing: how to responsibly use our cell phones. The Albert Lee High School Cell Phone Acceptable Use Protocol is a simple set of expectations that guide students when it is okay and not okay to use electronic devices. The first step of the protocol is defining what devices we're talking about. Anything electronic that you can think of probably qualifies. Cell phones, AirPods, earbuds, headphones, laptops and Chromebooks, portable gaming systems, music players, and any personal device deemed to be a distraction to learning in the classroom. Now that we've defined what a cell phone or electronic device is, here is the protocol. We have a zone system throughout the building, a stoplight system in the classrooms, and a tiered system of interventions for any violations to the protocol. Zones are both times and places in the building when devices can or cannot be used appropriately. Red zones includes places like bathrooms and locker rooms, the hallways during classes, anytime there's a red or yellow stoplight up in the classroom, or when a staff member asks you to put the device away. This is a good time to remind everyone that recording in a classroom or in the school without permission is not allowed by policy. If you are going to record in the school, please make sure you have permission of those around you, and if it's in the classroom, you must have teacher permission. Green zones are places and times you can use an electronic device. These include before and after school, during passing times, in the commons during lunch, and anytime a green stoplight is up in the classroom. So what are these stoplights I'm talking about? Each classroom will have posted in the room a stoplight with red, yellow, and green symbols. A red light means no devices are allowed, and your desk should be cleared of anything electronic. Yellow light means you can use your school-issued device like your Chromebook. And a green light means any device is available. Let's take a look at what this looks like. Ms. Netzer's in the hallway welcoming students to her classroom. As the bell rings, Ms. Netzer follows the students in, and you can see the green light on the board. This means that you can continue using personal devices. In order to start class, Ms. Netzer walks to the front of the classroom and tells the class it'll be time to start and switches the light to red. At this time, the students put away all electronic devices and prepare for the day's lesson. Ms. Netzer finishes her direct instruction and decides to move the stoplight from red to yellow. At this time, the students reach under their desks and get out their school-issued Chromebook. Ms. Netzer would like to allow the students to use their personal devices to collect more information and switches the stoplight to green. This means any device can be used. In one final example, Ms. Netzer goes from direct instruction in red right to green, which means a student can use any device they'd like to complete the daily assignments. As with any set of expectations, there may be times where students have trouble following along with what the expectations are. We will have a three-level or three-tier system of interventions. Tier 1 will include a classroom intervention with your teacher. Tier 2 will bring the administrative team into the picture. And Tier 3 will involve a family intervention where we get your parents or guardians on board to help us have you follow expectations. Tier 1 interventions include a verbal reminder to put the device away, turning in the device to the teacher and getting it back at the end of the hour, and turning it to the teacher, getting it back at the end of the hour, and getting a phone call home. Any refusal to turn in a device to a teacher will result in Tier 2 interventions automatically. Tier 2 interventions are administrative, such as turning in the device to the office and getting it back at the end of the day, and if that happens again, turning it into the office, return at the end of the day, and contacting family. Tier 3 is the most extreme intervention where you'll turn it into the office and a parent or guardian will need to come pick it up at the end of the day. This also could end up in a meeting with parents so we can figure out how to best meet expectations. Quick review. Red zones include bathrooms and locker rooms, classrooms when the red light is on, hallways during classes, and anytime a staff member asks you to put a phone away. The green zones are most commonly in the commons, before and after school, and in passing times. Thank you, Alberley High School, for listening to this short 6-minute video on the new cell phone expectations. We are very hopeful that this plan put in place will help you out. It's not meant to be punitive. It's meant to set expectations to help you out. So from the administrative team and all the staff, wish you all the best on a great 23-24 and look forward to seeing you guys in the hallways of Alberley High School. Thanks.
And then this last slide, just so you, as my days of technology integration, I always list the tools that were used to create the video. So if students have a desire to create something else, we used WeVideo, Google Slides, the software Canva, two different microphones, or two different cameras, a microphone, and the OBS Studio software. So I always like to include the educational tools we're using in order to create videos like that. Right, media person, yeah. So that's what we're watching tomorrow. Actually, at 5:30 tonight, that went out to every parent from the parent and guardian in the district as well. I've already gotten 500 views on S'more, according to my email that's been bouncing since I've been sitting back there. So we should be going in on the same page with everybody when this hits tomorrow at 9:15. So that's our main addition there. Like Tyler mentioned, the standard response protocol of hold, secure, lockdown, evacuate, and shelter. The posters are up in the building. We will be, a similar type video will be shown Thursday during the flexes to explain what these are. And it is great to have a common vocabulary throughout the district for these type of events. So this was added. We actually removed the word plagiarism from our handbook and replaced it with academic integrity. It refers to District Policy 506, and what we did instead of saying, if you do this, this is the punishment, is put out a set of expectations for students, teachers, and families, and then a tiered system of discipline to go along with it, to shift from a punitive lens to an expectation lens. You can maybe see a focus here as we move forward on trying to set expectations instead of just defining disciplinary action. Speaking of disciplinary action, you might have known from the state level that we now must try non-exclusionary discipline whenever possible. We've done this in the past. And a suspension is always our last line of defense. We do what we can to keep students in school. So it's not a lot of change to us. A tiered system, at the first time down, they're going to talk to us. The second time down, we're going to keep them in school. And then possibly the third time, then we have to send them home. But our non-exclusionary discipline will be utilized whenever possible, and we'll be doing a better job of tracking what we've tried so we can explain to stakeholders what the process was. We did add some new parking regulations because we went to a free model when we went out last year and did some looking around at vehicles. A lot of them did not have permits on last year because they used to have to buy the permit. So now we just are making sure they register for the permit, that they have it displayed in their front window, and then non-registered or incorrectly parked vehicles will receive a ticket and then eventually towed. It's a safety issue for us. We need to know who's in our lot and what's in those cars. By driving on school property, you're subjecting yourself to a search, and so we need to know whose cars we're getting into without calling police department and running plates. We used to have 3 levels of absence. We had present, we had absent, and we had the magical absent by tardy, which is a student that arrives to class more than 5 minutes late. So what that did with our truancy officers was allow a student to come with 5 minutes left in the class, check in, and be considered absent by tardy, which the county won't prosecute. So we eliminated the absent by tardy. After 5 minutes, the student is going to be absent. We still expect them to go to class. That's where the administrative team comes in to make sure that they get there. So we eliminated absent by tardy and now just have present and absent. Thanks. It'll be posted online. And we also go through in flexes for the next week and a half. We take chunks of the handbook and go through it every day during those flex periods.
So when the green light is turned on in the classroom, and by the way, Ms. Netzger essentially replaced me, and what
Yes, she
an
did.
improvement that was. When the green light is on in the classroom, you made the comment that then the students would be able to use their electronic devices to complete their daily assignments. Does that include communicating with their friends, who I assume would be
I would
helping
assume
them with their
probably.
daily assignments?
Yeah.
Right, okay. Any comments, questions?
Chris, who's going to enforce the permit in the car? Resource officer or?
No, we go out and do walks.
Okay.
We don't do it every day, but when we do go out, we hear something, we'll go out and just take a look. So we just do walks every once in a while. Sometimes if I'm coming back from a meeting here, I'll do a quick drive-through just to see how everything's going out there.
I'm anticipating this to be a dumb question, but hopefully it's not. But on the green light thing and the prohibited areas, is passing time the time between classes?
Yes, yep.
And
The 4 minutes from when one bell rings to the next bell rings.
Phones are,
That's okay there.
That's okay.
That's in the green zone, yep.
but they're prohibited in the use in the hallway?
During class
I
times.
gotcha, okay.
Yep.
good, Okay.
So what we're avoiding is, I want an e-hall pass to use the bathroom, and they leave and they're on their phone for 10 minutes
Sure.
because they just wanted to check their phones instead of actually using the bathroom.
Okay, good, thank you.
Yep.
So Chair Score, and directors, just want to reinforce, thank you to the building leaders and principals for ultimately setting the expectations for our students, and then supporting our students as we change culture, specifically with the technology. It has become, there's national research on just as a distraction and what that's doing to our youth. But it's also, we have to think about the supporting the innovative thinking. So it's finding that balance. And I think they've been continue to obtain feedback. Principal Dibble had worked with his students, his admin team, as well as teachers, took the feedback, and what is the solution? You set the expectations and communicate that out, and really work with our students in that Tier 1 to change the culture. You also heard another reinforcement in the elementary with the shift from our counselors to the administrative deans. It's not that the students will go with less support. It's providing a different support in collaboration with our social workers. So it's really thinking about how do we, through that Tier 1, how do we support the holistic opportunity for our students? Knowing that there's a definite shortage, the MSBA did a employment shortage not only in teachers but in our support staff. So how do we ensure that we recruit our staff, retain them, but also support our students? And the administrative dean is a shift, but again, it's not that the students will go with less, it's just enhancing the support through social workers and then focusing with administrative deans in that Tier 1 through our multi-tiered systems of support. And also then with the middle school, it is really clearly defining the rules and the expectations. And as we think about grading specifically, across the district, I think that's another level of conversation as we move deeper into student performance and what that looks like. So I just want to thank the building leaders and as they presented their student handbooks.
There's a couple left too.
Yes. And I also want to bring attention to another piece is that as these are unveiled, and we'll hear the final piece through Johanna, is I want you to listen for the coherence across the different buildings. So that is something that we're really working to really support.
Thank you. Johanna, ALC.
Good evening, everybody. So a few things, we all come from the same background that we've got a lot of distractions with our cell phones. So we have a little bit different. We're not doing a green light, red light, as you can see, but we do have some non-negotiables. For restrooms is a non-negotiable. Creating TikTok videos, pictures, that sort of thing is a non-negotiable without it being an educational purpose. Or any time a staff member asks for the device to be put away. So it mirrors some of the same concepts behind it and responsible use and being responsible about it. Classroom interventions are verbal reminders, calls to family caregivers, a discussion with myself, and then an incident report can be completed as well if a student is non-compliant. I also meet with students if it continues, and I do that quite a bit with students that are not engaging and having those conversations about success and goal setting and building relationships. Involving a parent or caregiver. Oftentimes, you have to remember quite a few of our students are over 18 and much more independent, so that becomes more of a personal responsibility with those students. And then looking at some other interventions that we might do with students that are continually not following our non-negotiables. So, and that's a very individualized set of circumstances. Would involve our counselor, our social worker, some things like that on how we can support students. So other than that, again, the changes in our emergency vocabulary, other than that, that was the big change in our handbook. And then for the online academy, most of what you will find with that are just updates to our staffing. We no longer have a counselor associated with the online academy. We partner with Owatonna Online, and I'm working with that counselor as we're working through student schedules and their academic needs towards graduation and that kind of thing. And then the link really is for the Owatonna Online handbook that goes along with that. Any questions?
Yeah, comments, questions, Johanna?
Just wanted to reinforce, Chair, that Principal Thomas, thank you. And I wanted to interrupt and have that natural break point to show that there is that coherence from the high school to the Alternative Learning Center. It's still our Albert Lee students. So Johanna's taken something that has been developed at the high school and modified to meet the needs of the student at our ALC. So there is that coherence across the schools. Thank you.
All right, this is an action item, so I'd entertain a motion from the board to approve the handbook updates.
So moved.
Moved by Gary. Seconded by Bruce. Any further questions, comments, discussions? Hearing none. All those in favor of the motion, say aye. Aye. Opposed? Motion carried. Thought it was a phone. All right.
Red light.
Red light, red light. By the way, I'm going to be interested to find out how especially the phone policy. I know I got more conversations on that subject than any other from staff, from former colleagues of mine. And it's a concern, and I know we've had various approaches to this. This sounds like, a very good step in the right direction, hopefully. And as is always the case, I think the bottom line as to whether it works or not is how rigorous it is enforced, and how much attention is paid to it by all parties involved, including students and including teachers and administrators and everybody in the district. So, good luck. Next, effective and efficient operation. We have an action item on a policy, the final reading. Kathy.
Yeah, so this is the third reading of the Education of Homeless Children, Policy 612.2. I have not heard from any board members, any additional questions or concerns to address here this evening. So for your consideration, Policy 612.2.
I'll move to approve policy.
Move to approve by Kim,
I'll second.
seconded by Angie. Any questions, further questions, discussions? We've had an opportunity to study this 2 times. Okay, it's been moved and seconded that we adopt the policy as presented. All those in favor? Aye. Opposed? Motion carries. Now we have a couple of other second reading, I believe, just one. Go ahead, Kathy.
Yes, so I'm inviting to the microphone here, as this is the second reading of the overdose medication, Jill Pryor, who is one of our licensed school nurses, to answer those questions you had last time that I was not able to. But prior to that, we met this last week with our school nurses to review the policy. They have been monitoring it pretty much all summer since last spring, since the legislature has made changes. They've kind of divided and conquered different pieces of it. We have 3.2 school nurses. So on the slide up here, some of the things that, just a reminder that this policy addresses processes as prescribed by statute, and the nurses will, with the superintendent and administrators, carry out the planning and processes for use of overdose medication in our schools. And I'm going to turn it over to Jill just to talk about what does it mean secure storage, because we've looked at some options, but we also have statute and recommendations from MSBA that we need to follow. So we'll start with storage, where what is the requirement as listed in the policy?
So this statute requires that each school building would have 2 doses of nasal naloxone. That's the medication that would reverse an opioid reaction, and that must be available on site. It needs to be in buildings where there are students. The medication comes in a nasal spray, one single nasal spray is considered a dose, and so each site needs to have 2 doses. This is what it actually looks like. And it's sprayed in the nose. It's the same dose for everyone, from tiny children to adults. And so when we read over this policy, if you look at the 4th page, under Roman numeral 5, it says naloxone storage. The section there on B says that we want to keep the storage locations so that the medication would be secure, obviously. And we don't want it to be tampered with, stolen, or open to any improper use. So when we read through that, we really feel like the best locations in our district would be in our buildings associated with the health offices. In addition to that, we would like to have 2 doses at Hammer Field. So we're really looking at 9 locations throughout the district. There would be 4 elementaries. There would be Southwest. There would be the high school. There would be the ALC, Brookside, and Hammer Field. So 18 doses at these 9 locations. The approximate cost to the district of purchasing the medication is about $540. And they're good for 3 years. So after 3 years, the medications would reach their expiration point and they need to be replaced. And sometime in the near future, the naloxone is going to become available over the counter, like through Walgreens, Walmart. But at this time, it's not. We do have 3 options available to purchase naloxone, and some of those options might actually be lower cost than what would be available from a pharmacy. And we have that information from Minnesota Department of Health. So another question is, the statute does not define who must be trained, but rather it says that anyone administering it must be trained. So when we look at our district, it really makes sense to us that we would train our district first aid providers. We have approximately 40 individuals in all of our settings that are trained every 2 years in CPR. And there are also those that are manning the health offices and backups for the health offices. So it would involve some additional people for Hammer Field and possibly some administrators. But initially, we do recommend that the training be done for our district first aid providers. There is training that the Minnesota Department of Health offers. They have this toolkit. It looks like there's about 6 different online trainings that they do recommend. So we could certainly use one of those and then give our staff members that are trained some hands-on training after that as well. It mentions we will need a standing order for the medication. That's because at this time, the medication does need a prescription. So like the 4th bullet point up there says standing order through the Rumler network. That is one of our 3 options where we can purchase naloxone. And this network is called Steve Rumler Hope Network. It's been recommended to us through the School Nurses of Minnesota, as well as the Minnesota Department of Health. And they would provide us with a standing order so we could get the medication purchased. And then later, when it does come available over the counter, we could purchase it that way as an option too. So, questions that I could answer that you might have?
A couple of questions for you, Joe. Is naloxone, is that considered a narcotic?
No, it's an opioid antagonist. So opioids are medications for pain. That would include like methadone, fentanyl, Vicodin, those medications. So this would stop a reaction. So somebody that's overdosed on the medication. In the hospital, many people are used to hearing the word Narcan. That's the brand name for naloxone. So we're talking about the generic medication that would stop a reaction and save a life.
Is there a certain time frame that this has to be
The medication needs to be administered in good faith by a trained person who believes that this person is having an overdose reaction. So the online trainings kind of go through the different signs and symptoms to look for and see what is this individual exhibiting. And if the medication is administered to somebody that is not having an overdose reaction, it is generally not harmful at all.
Is there a time frame though that they have to administrate it by 2 hours, 1 hour, 30 minutes, anything? And I know that's very technical, but that's what I'm getting at with the 2 doses, the number of trained people, where do we need to have it? Does it go in everyone's kit? I mean, you've answered a lot of it, but just curious on how that works.
Really, the recommendation is as soon as possible when a person is determined that they're having overdose reaction. A lot of times, the training mentioned 30 minutes. So we can easily have staff members in our buildings get that medication in that secure location, administer it within 30 minutes. Yeah.
And you mentioned it's got a 2-year shelf life?
3 years.
3-year shelf.
Mhm. Yeah.
And is there one other, just to follow up on the, I'm the administrator at the particular building event, whatever, and I noticed there might be this possibility. Is there a team that will discuss this, or like you said, since you're trained, you ought to know, you administrate it, that's it? Like, it's not gonna hurt them, but it sure might help.
Right, right. Yes, and we're going to determine that more closely with Mr. Wagner as we go forward. But typically, you know, at our football games and our evening events, there is a police presence, and our police do have naloxone. They typically carry the injectable form with a needle. So sometimes they have both, the nasal form and the injectable. All of our ambulances in this area do carry them. So if we have an ambulance at a football game, it's available there. So really, initially, we're looking at fulfilling this statute by having it available in our health office areas, in all of our buildings, those 9 locations, including Hammerfield. Yeah, you're welcome. Other questions that you might have?
I also have a couple questions. The first one is, will this training be open to any staff who are interested? And then how would we handle a situation where somebody who's considered untrained does use naloxone to save somebody? Would there be repercussions, or what would happen then?
So we are looking at initiating this by having our first aid providers, these 40 individuals that are, you know, scattered throughout the district, being trained, and then having the medication in a secure location. So other people might not realize where that is. So it would involve a phone call for help or calling 911, you know, in a situation like that. Does that answer your question?
Kind of. I know, I mean, it does. I know there is a naloxone access point in town where people can get free kits, and
Yep.
so
Yep.
I realize students might carry it too. I just wonder what would happen if a student used it, and
Right, so that's going to be something we're going to have to make a decision on, if we want students to be allowed to self-carry. Some districts are deciding no, that they're not allowing students to self-carry this medication at school. Some districts are deciding yes. So if we would decide yes, then the student could have it in their backpack, it would be accessible to them, and that would be, you know, another dose that we would need to have that, a record of that, so we would know that the student was carrying it. Just like if they were carrying an EpiPen, we would have a record of that in the health office, so we know where that would be.
okay.
Yeah.
Has there been any talk of carrying it on the buses at all?
This does not require it to be carried on buses.
Okay.
This statute does not. Other questions?
All right, thank you, Jill, Kathy.
You're welcome.
So we'll bring this back next month for a third reading. If you have any additional questions, please send them our way. I really appreciate our school nurses. They've really kept on top of things. And as they've read the policy, have had to pivot a little bit on, you know, the changes that have come forward. So thanks to them. We also, I want to thank the principals for talking about all the things they did today, because you'll be seeing those in upcoming policies. Can't wait. Thank you.
It would appear that we have exhausted the agenda.
One more thing. Tonight in the audience, we have the weatherman from KAL. He lives in Albert Lea. He promotes Albert Lea every chance he gets. He slightly promotes them when he's given the weather. We're very fortunate to have you in the community, Jim.
Stand
Just
up,
got one
Jim.
question for you. Yeah. Can you do anything about the weather the next 3 days? I wish I could. I wish I could. I enjoy you every morning.
So Director Olson, is he present to tell us it's going to be hot? Is that what I'm?
Very, very hot. Recess shouldn't happen.
Oh, that's true.
And tonight it will be dark. All right, again, hearing no other comments relative to the agenda, I will declare this meeting adjourned.